Hello, mic check from the weather, mic check from weather, mic check from weather, mic check from weather. Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Matt Ritter doing a mic check for the National Weather Desk. Right now on the National Weather Desk, a cold front brings severe weather to the Midwest.
You've got this giant storm getting 40,000 feet in the air.
And weather whiplash to millions as temperatures plummet 40 degrees or more. Red flag warnings across multiple states today as persistent drought conditions help feed wildfires.
Total destruction. The clothes what I got on is what I have.
A disabled veteran tells his remarkable story of survival from Hawaii's floods.
We didn't know how stranded we were or how long this was going to take to get out.
We're tracking hummingbirds returning to the United States.
These tiny marvels are a sure sign that spring has arrived.
And the 911 call about a wildfire that was instead something to sneeze at.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
And good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Matt Ritter. And what a difference a day makes. One day after it felt like summer from the plains to the East Coast, today folks are going to want to keep a jacket nearby. A cold front is sending temperatures plummeting. Highs in many cities today will be 40 degrees or lower than what they were yesterday. For example, Kansas City hit 93 yesterday, smashing its all-time record high for the month of March. Overnight, it dropped to 37, and it will only be in the 50s today. And across the Great Lakes in New England, highs won't get out of the 20s and 30s. The cool down will be short-lived, with temperatures expected to be more seasonable later this weekend. And that cold front also triggered severe storms across the Midwest. There were dozens of reports of hail and wind damage in Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. These hail photos were taken in central Ohio, not far from Columbus. Meteorologist Marshall McPeak provided live coverage last night and explained how hailstones can grow in size.
What's happening here is you've got this giant storm getting 40,000 feet in the air. And that's part of what creates those big hail cores, those big hailstones. Because these updrafts, to pull this storm this high up, has a huge amount of power going straight up. So it'll start with a tiny little frozen raindrop. And because everything up this direction is frozen. It's cold enough up that high. It's frozen. So that little raindrop freezes, it stays frozen and gets caught up in this updraft. And it goes all the way up and it freezes. And another layer gets glommed on the outside. And then it falls a little bit this way, and then it comes back up and back down and back up and back down. And the more it gets caught up in this updraft, each time it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually it gets so big, the updraft can't pick it up anymore. But in this case, you've got enough of that updraft. These are going to potentially be big stones, and it will then fall out of the storm, and that's when you get those large hailstones.
And the storms were severe, but not as bad as they could have been. If they had been that bad, the local emergency managers were ready. Nick Villan shows us how they prepare for severe weather.
The unpredictability of severe weather makes it difficult for law enforcement to plan, but they say they're ready to respond at a moment's notice. It all starts here, inside the 911 center, where real-time communication connects emergency management and law enforcement as conditions worsen.
I will probably spend most of my time this evening in the 911 center right as the storm comes to start listening to those calls, what's going on, and seeing what we're looking at. And if I need to go out and be boots on the ground, I will go out with Brian Huddleston, and we will go out and we will start looking at damage assessments and go from there.
Holly Langham says if damage is so severe after the storms, she'll activate this room to best plan a path forward.
So right now it's just in monitoring status, so we have it set up for emergencies.
Deputies say despite the recent severe weather, they're ready.
And drought conditions in portions of the plains are contributing to the spread of wildfires. This fire in Kansas is now mostly out, but others are still burning in Oklahoma, Missouri, and Texas. And red flag warnings are posted again today. Drew Powell spoke with a family who lost everything and spoke with first responders near Amarillo who want to prevent that from happening again.
Total destruction. The clothes, what I got on is what I have. So,
okay, and you said you didn't have insurance, is that correct?
No, sir. No, sir. Don't have no insurance.
Fighting fire with fire is a technique that firefighters have to use in order to get the upper hand on an out-of-control wildland fire. There was not one, but two separate fires in Hutchinson County, and firefighters had to set up what they call burn lines in order to stop the forward progression.
So then basically what it is, it's a backing fire that actually backs up the wind. You start it downwind and it backs into the fire that's coming to it.
We have engines that are going to be patrolling all day. We have heavy equipment staged if needed, just in case we have any problem areas that do pop up.
In addition to the high temperature and the strong winds, what made it more challenging for firefighters at the location is the terrain.
Especially down in that river bottom, it's very sandy. The terrain isn't really good for anything except for heavy equipment.
And there's even some spots where equipment cannot get across and they have to actually put personnel on foot to actually put in line.
We are hearing more stories of survival following last week's devastating floods in Hawaii. Mahalani Richardson introduces us to a disabled veteran who was airlifted to safety.
Friday's overnight storm flooded the first floor of Tyson Byram's Haleiwa home on Waialua Beach Road.
It was just scary as could be. We were sitting with flashlights watching refrigerators and you know, there goes another cooler or there goes a trash can and just boats.
In the morning, with the sun out, he flew his drone and saw the surge of floodwaters had swept away countless cars, leaving massive piles of metal with nearly 4 feet of water.
We didn't know how stranded we were or how long this was going to take to get out, so all of our vehicles were completely submerged in water.
Byram, a 44-year-old disabled Army veteran and retired medic, his service dog Yoshi, 3 other family members, and a neighbor had no way to drive or walk out. In came a Navy MH-60 Seahawk helicopter crew. The crew plucked them from the yard, one by one, with Byram clutching his dog.
I was still on the front porch and waved a towel out from the front porch, and they came over. It was still about mid to thigh high deep going across the middle of the driveway there, but it had dried up enough to where when they came to approach the house, they were able to hover about 80 feet, 100 feet. The last time I was in a Black Hawk helicopter or any UH-60 was when I was being extracted from Afghanistan in 2012 after my 4th deployment. I never thought I'd ever be inside one again.
The San Francisco Bay Area now has a new high-tech storm tracking radar network. It's expected to improve evacuation planning and water resource management. This network of high-tech radar stations will track atmospheric river storms. It's designed to show where the heaviest rain will fall, and it will provide rainfall updates every 1 to 2 minutes. Well, Washington's cherry blossom trees officially reached peak bloom yesterday. The pink and white flowers typically last about a week, but that could be a challenge this year. Rain and wind in D.C. today will likely start shaking some of the petals off the trees. Meantime, northern Nevada is welcoming spring by celebrating a different flower. Jaden Zelms reports.
One flower does very well in the northern Nevada climate, and that is the daffodil. And here at the May Arboretum, they are almost in full bloom just in time for their big spring kickoff event on April 3rd and go to April 4th, and it is a showcase of their spring flowers. Admission to the daffodil show is free, and there will also be exhibits of curated photography. The event is to celebrate the wide range of the Arboretum and get the community back outside. Volunteer Rod Dimmitt explains that a majority of the work to plant and care for the flowers is all done by volunteers.
So the beds, as you walk through Kleiner Oak Grove, the May Arboretum Society funded redoing 26 daffodil beds back in 2024 and planted all new bulbs and everything. There's about, I want to say there's about 15 different varieties of daffodils, and so they're kind of timed to bloom at different times. So last year was the first year that they grew, and then this year they've just really taken off.
There's over 13 acres of the Arboretum here at the park, and while that event kicks off on April 3rd, all of the flowers are in bloom and you're able to walk around during the normal park hours. Reporting in Reno, Jaden Zelms.
Our storm chaser Brett Adair found this large dust devil on Wednesday in western Mississippi. It's a short-lived whirlwind that is typically harmless. They form on hot, sunny days, usually in deserts or flat, dry areas. Unlike most tornadoes, dust devils form from the ground up. And check out this story. A 911 call about a possible grass fire turned out to be a false alarm when firefighters discovered the reported smoke was in fact just plumes of pollen. A homeowner reported smoke in some trees in southern Iowa. Officials quickly confirmed no controlled burns were taking place in the park. And after observing cedar trees sporadically releasing clouds of pollen that looked a lot like smoke, they put 2 and 2 together, deeming the scene to not be a threat. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, a closer look at the remarkable journey hummingbirds make as they return to the United States. And a look back at a deadly tornado outbreak on Palm Sunday.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with a look at the northeast. We have a cold front that's shifting off to the south early this morning. Notice developing sun here. That wind picks up out of the northwest, and that's going to usher in a cooler air mass for this afternoon and Saturday. Notice most towns are running the 40s at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Skies will become brighter today. That wind drops off tonight with lows in the teens and 20s. And then it's more clouds than sun on Saturday. Look at these temperatures. We'll have highs only in the 30s.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Dubailey. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. A chilly day on the way as we head into your Friday with rain likely. Going to continue to see the showers around as temperatures fall throughout the day, drying out as we head into Saturday. Sunday looks like it will be a little bit warmer but cloudy. So those temperatures, your highs in the morning, and then it's afternoon. We're going to be seeing temperatures only in the 30s, 40s, and maybe 50s as we go into Saturday. Still pretty chilly.
I'm meteorologist Lauren Oleski with a look at your southeast forecast. It is going to be a warm one across the area, across the region for our Friday. Temperatures highs mostly in the 80s out there. A front boundary will eventually, though, be moving across the southeast, bringing the chance for some rainfall across parts of Tennessee and into North Carolina during the day on Friday, and then clearing out nicely on Saturday. Could then bring cooler air back into the region for the second half of the weekend.
watching the National Weather Desk.
Holy Week begins for Christians around the world this weekend. 61 years ago, Palm Sunday was marred by a deadly tornado outbreak across the Midwest and the South. It produced dozens of tornadoes. Alabama meteorologist Riley Blackwell looks back at what's become known as the Palm Sunday tornado outbreak of 1965.
On this day, 60 years ago, we had another Palm Sunday outbreak. This was actually the second Palm Sunday outbreak of the 3 that have been recorded on record. One in 1920, one in 1994. This one, 1965. Didn't impact us here locally in Alabama, but more so of the Midwest, where they had several significant, violent, killer tornadoes, 47 confirmed tornadoes in total. 18 of those F4s, 6 of those F3s, 14 of those were F2s. And according to the outbreak intensity score, it is the 4th most significant outbreak in history. And since a lot of people were in churches and warnings were relatively primitive, at least 266 people were killed. And on record, at least 4, what they say, twin or double barrel or multiple vortex tornadoes just like this one were spotted, which are often only seen in strong, violent tornadoes. So fortunately, weather is calm so we can go back and talk about history. But of course, like we say, always got to keep an eye on April. Back to you.
And getting ready for severe weather means checking a lot of boxes. Meteorologist David Holtman spoke to an expert about items needed during and after a disaster.
That starts with designating a place where you can stay safe. Create an emergency storm kit, which includes first aid supplies, some non-perishable food, and some water, ideally enough to last you 72 hours. You may have done these things already to prepare before a storm, but what people are often unprepared for is what happens after.
But as part of that recovery process, having those government documents helps, right? A deed, a lease, anything that indicates, title to property, things like that. Because if it is a situation where your home has been impacted, they're asking people to leave the neighborhood, you have to be able to return to that neighborhood or prove that's where you belong.
On top of that, any computers, appliances, cars, or any other high-value items should be cataloged and photographed before the disaster for insurance claims. Photographing the damage caused to those items will also help, not only for insurance, but for federal assistance. Finally, research which federal assistance programs you may need in the future.
It's been a dry start to 2026 for much of North Carolina, as well as large portions of the country. Meteorologist Julia Haley looks at what areas are dealing with drought and what it means for wildfire season.
Our last rainfall surplus was in August 2025. Since September, our rainfall accumulation has consistently been below normal, including deficits around 3 inches for both November and December. And when you add it all up, we're running about 10 inches below normal. That long-term dryness is helping fuel wildfire concerns across the area, and it's also impacting soil moisture and streams. Looking ahead, the Climate Prediction Center shows wetter than normal conditions stretching from the plains through the Midwest and into parts of the Northeast, while drier than normal weather is favored out west and also across parts of the Southeast, including Florida and South Georgia. Here in western North Carolina, we fall right in that middle zone near normal for rainfall. Typically, Asheville observes about 4 inches of rain in April. And as the saying goes, April showers bring May flowers, but timing matters. The Climate Prediction Center suggests early April will be a bit drier than normal. Then we level out closer to average as the month goes on. Into late spring, above normal rainfall becomes possible, though the signal for that is still fairly weak. So the pattern may gradually improve, but not fast enough to eliminate wildfire risk in the near future.
Spring is here, and that means birds are flying north. Hummingbirds were first spotted in South Texas and Florida about a month ago. Many have since made their way farther north to right here in our nation's capital. Meteorologist Veronica Johnson has more.
They're small, fast, and easy to miss. But every spring, hummingbirds begin arriving to the D.C. region after an extraordinary journey. Most of the birds that we see here are the ruby-throated hummingbirds, the only species that breeds in the eastern United States. Scientists say they typically start appearing in the mid-Atlantic in early April.
The males are going to arrive first,
And then a couple of weeks later, females are going to start arriving.
To reach us, many of these birds travel from Central America. Some even fly across the Gulf of Mexico, a nonstop trip of 500 miles. And they do it by preparing like endurance athletes. Before migration, hummingbirds eat constantly and build up fat reserves, sometimes increasing their body weight by nearly 40%.
And that amount of fat, that it's basically half of their 40% of their body mass, allows them to fly over water, crossing the Gulf.
Despite weighing less than a nickel, hummingbirds are aerodynamic marvels. Their wings beat between 50 and 80 times per second, creating that signature humming sound. They're also the only birds that can hover and fly backward. Now, if you want to attract them to your yard this spring, experts say the best way is planting native flowers like cardinal flowers, eastern red columbine, or coral honeysuckle. Feeders can help too, but they do require regular cleaning and maintenance and the right nectar mix.
So if you want to attract hummingbirds, plant native flowers. Native plants that are going to produce plenty of flowers that are red, tubular, rich in nectar.
With their incredible journeys and lightning fast wings, these tiny marvels are a sure sign that spring has arrived in the DMV. I'm Chief Meteorologist Veronica Johnson for the National Weather Desk.
And now let's check out a preview of this week's episode of our podcast, Off the Radar.
Last week, millions along the East Coast braced for something serious. The Storm Prediction Center had highlighted a significant severe weather threat. Inside the SPC in Norman, Oklahoma, the forecasters watching this setup weren't taking it lightly.
All the pieces were there that it was a very concerning environment.
Then the day arrived, and for much of the East Coast, the threat diminished. The cold front passed, it was windy, but no tornado outbreak.
It was a somber mood in the operations floor because we realized that, we had messaged a higher end event that was not going to occur quite the way that it seemed to be.
Almost immediately, there was backlash, and some meteorologists began to apologize. But that reaction is exactly why the Storm Prediction Center is rethinking how it communicates risk in the first place. Because forecasting severe weather is much more than drawing lines on a map. There's real science behind these outlooks, and they're more accurate than ever before. Today we're going off the radar and inside the epicenter of severe weather forecasting. Because sometimes the difference between a bust and a forecast that did its job is simply how well we understand the forecast in the first place.
And you can find Off the Radar anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. New episodes drop every Tuesday. And time now for a quick break, but first we take in some views of Snoqualmie Falls in Washington State.
Well, a very good Friday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. The severe storms we had across the lower Great Lakes today is all the rain that's pushing its way out of the Ohio Valley and out of here for the day today. Cooler temperatures kicking in for the rest of us. And as we head into your Saturday, not looking too bad across most of the Midwest. We've got a mix of sun and clouds with cool temperatures. By the time that we get to your Sunday, warming up a little bit more and still dry, but warmer next week with more rain.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. Here's a look at your regional weather. Early morning temperatures is saying 44 for our friends up in Amarillo. That little bit of a cool air already pushing in. Even into Oklahoma City, still pretty warm all the way down to Brownsville into the 70s. Weak cold front pushes on down across the region, won't bring much in the way of rain, will bring a slight break in temperatures and some cloud cover across the region. So look for slightly cooler temperatures today. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. That's a look at your regional weather.
I'm George Waldenberger. Here's your forecast for the western United States, and things have really calmed down nicely. We'll call it our springtime calm, but it's quite warm between Vegas, Phoenix, and parts of Southern California. On the other hand, Northern California along the coast north of San Francisco has been quite cold in the mornings lately. Quiet into Missoula, although the wind's still cranking toward Colorado, New Mexico, and Texas, where an ongoing fire threat continues.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Heavy rain is common this time of year, and that could be dangerous if you happen to be out in your car. Hydroplaning can be a real risk. Meteorologist Eric Kostriva has some tips for staying safe on the road.
Whenever you have a lot of water on the road or it is raining heavily, you'll want to make sure you are reducing your speeds, preferably below 45 miles per hour. Even if you're on the freeway, taking it slow. Hopefully others are doing the same thing around you will help you stay safe. You want to check the tire thread and make sure you have enough to keep yourself locked into place as you are going over some of those wet roads. But the deeper the water, the more likely that water is able to kind of pick up and move your car around a little bit more. You don't want too high or too low of that tire pressure. You want to keep it just right. Make sure you look at that manufacturer's booklet in your car so you know what the perfect PSI is for your car specifically. And of course, the larger the tire, the better traction, and the more tire you have on the surface, the better off you will be.
And we'd love to share your weather content on the air. You can find us on all your favorite social media platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Just search the National Weather Desk. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm meteorologist Matt Ritter. Make it a great Friday. Have a good, safe weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday for the National Weather Desk.